I know you guys watch these videos to relax or at bedtime, so before starting I would like you guys to subscribe the channel and let me know in the comments down below from where and at what time you are watching this video. Let's begin. There's something deeply unsettling about seeing someone where they shouldn't be. Someone behaving in a way that breaks the quiet rules of the world. This story was first told on the internet, Reddit actually, by a man who swore it really happened. But over the years, the story has changed, evolved, twisted into something much darker. They say he's still out there, watching, dancing, smiling. This is the story of the smiling man. It started as a simple routine. I had trouble sleeping for months. Insomnia, anxiety, who knows? Every night felt like a struggle to get comfortable, to shut off the static in my mind. So I started walking. Late at night, usually between 1 and 3 a.m. The streets were calm then. The chaos of the day faded into silence, and the only sounds were distant dogs, the occasional passing car, or my own footsteps echoing off dark storefronts. It was peaceful, until it wasn't. One night, around 2:45 a.m., I decided to take a different route, just to break the routine. I turned down a side street near an old abandoned church. The place was boarded up years ago. Graffiti covered the walls, but it was quiet and I didn't feel unsafe, until I saw him. Under a flickering yellow street lamp stood a man, tall, thin, and oddly stiff. He was wearing a suit, a wrinkled, oversized thing that hung off his body like it didn't belong to him. His head was tilted slightly back, eyes fixed skyward, but what made me stop in my tracks was his smile. That smile. It was too wide, too forced, stretched across his face like it hurt to hold. He wasn't looking at me. Not yet. But his presence filled the entire street like a shadow. I stepped slowly past him, keeping my distance. My skin prickled. I glanced back once. He hadn't moved. Still smiling. Still staring up at the sky. I thought maybe he's just a weird drunk guy. So I kept walking. 2 blocks later, I crossed the street. A little voice in my head urged me to put distance between me and that thing. And that's when I heard it. Shuff, tap, drag. Shuff, tap, drag. Footsteps. I turned around slowly. There he was. But now he was dancing. Not gracefully, not like a trained dancer. It was clumsy and unnatural, like he was mimicking a dance he'd only seen once, decades ago. His limbs jerked, swung wide, his feet glided and stomped erratically, and all the while, he kept that grotesque grin plastered on his face. He was getting closer. Still not looking at me directly, but dancing in my direction. I stepped back, heart pounding in my throat. "Hey, you good?" I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. No answer. Just that weird, twisted movement. He danced toward the edge of the street, and without breaking stride, he crossed the road, mirroring my path. That was it. I turned and walked fast. Not quite running, but close. I didn't want to look back, but I did. He was closer. I made it back to the main road, hoping to see a car, a person, anything. But the streets were deserted. And behind me at the corner there he was, half hidden by the shadows. Not dancing anymore. Just watching now. Smiling. I crossed the street again. So did he. I turned sharply. He did too. He wasn't chasing me. He was following me. But not like a normal person would. There was something performative about the way he moved, like he knew he was being watched, like he was putting on a show. I finally broke into a run. My legs were jelly, my breath short. I didn't care how stupid I looked. I sprinted home, slammed the door shut, double-locked it. Then I peeked through the blinds. He He was standing across the street, still smiling. The next few nights I didn't go out. I couldn't. But I couldn't sleep either. Every creak in the walls, every gust of wind outside felt like him. Like he was still there, waiting. On the fifth night I gave in. I peeked out the window again. Empty street. No one. Maybe it was over. Maybe he moved on. I went to bed, and for the first time in a week I actually started to drift off. Until I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Like someone tapping their fingernails on glass. I sat up. It was coming from the window. I live on the second floor. My blood turned to ice. I crept over and slowly pulled back the curtain. He was there. Not outside on the street. On my fire escape. Standing smiling. His hand gently tapping the glass with one long finger. His face was so close to the pain that his breath had fogged it. And he was still dancing. Just slightly. One heel twisting. A shoulder bouncing. I screamed. I don't remember dialing 911, but I must have. Because when I blinked again, the lights of a patrol car filled the street. He was gone. The cops searched the block. No one saw him. No one else reported anything strange. I described him in full detail, down to the wrinkled suit, the bizarre dancing, the horrible smile. One of the officers gave me a strange look. He said, "You're not the first person to report something like this." I asked what he meant, but he just shook his head. Urban legend. Kids tell stories. Try to stay inside at night. Days later, I convinced my landlord to check the building's CCTV footage. I needed proof that I wasn't insane. The cameras showed the front of the building, the street, the sidewalk. At 3:13 a.m., the screen flickered. And then, there he was. He came into frame backward, as if rewinding time. His body jerked in spasm, still dancing, the smile still there. But then, something even more disturbing. He looked up at the camera, as if he knew I'd be watching. He waved, then vanished. Not walked out of frame. Vanished. I moved apartments a week later. I couldn't stay there. Couldn't sleep. The night before I left, I had a dream. I was back on that street under the flickering street lamp. Everything was dead silent. And I saw him again. This time he spoke. But his mouth didn't move. The voice just echoed through the air like it was inside my skull. He said, "The smile spreads. You looked. Now you'll dance too." I woke up, heart racing. In the mirror, my face looked pale, tired, and for a second, I swore I saw my lips curl into a smile. Some people say the smiling man is a ghost. Others say he's a curse. Maybe he's something older, something that wears a human face and dances in the dark for those who dare to walk alone. So if you're out late at night, and you hear a strange shuffle, a soft tap on your window, don't look, because if you do, you might never stop smiling. Let's move on to the next one. There's something ancient about the forest. It swallows sound. It distorts time. And sometimes, it hides things that were never meant to be found. This story came from an ex-forest ranger. He swore it happened. But when he tried to share it, they tried to shut him up. Some stories aren't supposed to be told. This is the tale of the stairs in the woods. I was stationed in a rural national park in the Pacific Northwest. Thousands of acres of dense forest, old-growth trees, and barely any cell service. After 4 years in the same region, I requested a transfer to a quieter post. Fewer tourists, more backcountry patrols. At first it was peaceful. I'd spend entire shifts walking forgotten trails, checking on remote campsites, and making sure no one got lost. That peace didn't last long. I first saw them in late September. I was hiking deep into an off-limits area, miles from any official trail, looking for signs of illegal campers. There shouldn't have been anything man-made out there. But as I pushed through the trees, I stopped dead in my tracks. There, in the middle of a clearing, stood a staircase. A perfectly intact staircase made of pale gray concrete. No railings, no base, no platform. Just steps. It looked like it had been ripped from an old building and dropped in the woods. It went up maybe 15 steps. And then, nothing. Just air. I approached slowly, unsure of what I was even seeing. I looked for footprints, signs of construction, anything. But the grass around it was untouched. Not a single mark. I radioed it in. Found an abandoned structure? I offered. The static hissed back before a gruff voice cut in. Do not approach the stairs. I froze. What? Why? Just leave it. Keep moving. The line went dead. 2 days later, we got a call from a couple, panicked, crying. Their brother Jake had gone hiking the day before and hadn't returned. I joined the search the next morning. We followed the trail Jake had logged in a GPS tracker he'd left with his car. It led straight past the area where I'd seen the stairs. I didn't say anything. 5 of us hiked in. Hours passed. We found no signs until one of the volunteers called out. Over here. We ran to him. He was pointing down into a ravine. At the bottom was Jake's backpack. It was torn, muddy, but still zipped. His phone was inside, battery dead. We scoured the area. No blood. No footprints leading away. Just the bag. Jake was never found. That night, back at base, I brought up the stairs again, carefully. You guys ever see anything weird out there? One of the older rangers, Tom, didn't even look up. Like what? Like staircases? He slowly turned to me. You saw them, didn't you? I nodded. He leaned back in his chair and sighed. They're not supposed to be there. But they are. Always have been. What are they? No one knows. We're told not to go near them. Not to talk about them. But they move. They what? They don't stay in one place. They shift. And every time someone goes missing, really missing like Jake, there's always one nearby. He paused. And sometimes if you get too close, you'll hear something. I couldn't sleep. That conversation haunted me. So the next morning I broke the rule. I went back to the clearing. The staircase was still there. This time, something was different. The forest was silent. Not quiet, dead silent. No birds. No wind. No crunching underfoot. Like the world was holding its breath. I walked closer. Every instinct screamed at me to stop. But I needed to know. I put one foot on the bottom step. Suddenly, a sound, high-pitched, warped, like a voice but reversed, garbled, like something underwater whispering through broken teeth. It was coming from the top of the stairs. My head spun. My vision blurred. My ears started to ring. I stumbled back, fell into the dirt. The noise stopped. I crawled away, and the stairs just stood there, silent again, watching. A week passed, and then another. The stairs vanished. I went back to the clearing every day. Gone. But something was wrong. I started hearing things at night. Scratching. Tapping on my windows. Whispers in my sleep. Always in that same garbled tone. And then I had the dream. In it, I was standing at the top of the stairs. The forest stretched out below me, dark and endless. And below me, in the trees, something was moving. A shape. Humanoid. Tall. But bent, broken. Its limbs too long. Its neck twisted. It crawled out from under the stairs and looked up and smiled. I woke up screaming. I searched the ranger station archives. Found an old metal filing cabinet labeled Unexplained. Inside, a leather-bound journal. No name. Just a date, 1981. I flipped through it. Pages and pages of entries, all about the stairs. Some appeared out of nowhere. Some glowed at night. Some were made of bone. One entry said, "I climbed to the top. Everything changed. I saw the other side." Another read, "Don't go up. If you do, it sees you." The last entry was just a smear of ink, as if the pen had been yanked mid-sentence. That ranger was never seen again. I made one last trip, back to the deepest part of the forest. The stairs were there. Different this time, twisted black metal, rusted, humming softly. I stood before them, and I climbed, step after step. The world around me grew darker, colder. The air turned thick like smoke. At the top was nothing, just a void. And out of that void came the voice. "Now we know your name. Now you belong to us." I fell, woke up on the forest floor, bleeding, dizzy. The stairs were gone again, but something followed me home. They say the stairs only appear to certain people, those who are curious, those who look too closely at the dark places in the world. So if you're ever walking through the woods and you see a staircase, just standing there alone, leading to nowhere, don't climb it. Don't touch it. Don't even look at it too long, because if you do, you might look back. Let's move on to the next one. It all started when I got hired as a night receptionist at the Rose Hill Grand Hotel, an old, towering building with more history than guests. Built in 1911, it used to host politicians and movie stars. Now, it mostly catered to lonely businessmen and quiet drifters. The kind of place where no one asked too many questions. My shift was simple, midnight to 8 a.m., 5 days a week. The pay was decent. The lobby was always empty. And most nights, I didn't see a single soul after midnight. The manager, Mr. Klein, was quiet and stern. Before my first shift, he gave me one rule. Don't check anyone into room 313. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. But his eyes stayed serious. No matter what happens, if someone asks for that room, say it's unavailable. The first few nights were uneventful. I mostly scrolled through my phone, refilled the coffee station, and watched the security cameras. Then, on my sixth night, around 3:30 a.m., the lobby doors opened. A man walked in. He was dressed in an old-fashioned suit, three-piece black dusty. His skin was pale, almost gray, and he didn't blink much. He leaned on the front desk and smiled. "I'd like a room. Number 313. I felt a chill. "Sorry, sir. That room's out of service," I said, trying to sound casual. He didn't respond right away, just stared. Then he said, "That's not what she told me." "Who?" "She's waiting for me. In 313. I froze. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I didn't type anything. Finally, I offered him another room. 306. He smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That'll do." He took the key and walked off without another word. The next night, curiosity got the better of me. I reviewed the security footage from the night before. At 3:30 a.m., I watched myself talking to the man. But something was off. In the footage, he wasn't there. I was standing at the desk, nodding, talking, but the other side of the conversation was empty. My stomach turned. I fast-forwarded to the hallway camera. Room 300 in SIXS door opened. Then it closed. No one on screen. Nothing walked through. That night I couldn't focus. Every creak in the lobby made my skin crawl. Then just after 2 a.m. I saw something strange on the monitor. The elevator on the third floor opened by itself. Then, slowly, a woman stepped out. She was wearing a long red dress. Her hair was soaking wet. And she didn't walk, she glided. She moved down the hallway and vanished in front of room 313. I stared at the screen, frozen. Then the phone on the desk rang. I jumped. "Hello?" A faint voice whispered. "He shouldn't have taken her place." Click. The next morning I went digging. I searched room 313 Rose Hill Grand Hotel. It took hours before I found something. An old archived newspaper from 1976. Woman found dead in hotel room. Suspected murder-suicide in Rose Hill Grand. The photo showed room 313. A young woman, 27, had checked in with her fiancé. He left the hotel alone. Days later, her body was discovered in the bathtub, drowned. No signs of struggle. He was never found again. Her name was Lena Marlowe. The fiancé's name was never released. 3 nights later he came back. Same time. Same dusty suit. Same pale skin. "I'd like to return to room 313, he said. My throat was dry. "I told you, that room's closed." He stared at me, unblinking. Lena's still waiting. I stayed silent. He leaned in closer and his voice dropped to a whisper. "You gave me the wrong room. That was meant for you." I backed away. My chest tightened. My heart raced. And then he smiled, wider than before. Too wide. And vanished. Right in front of me. Like smoke. After that, I quit. But I had one last shift to cover. My 2 weeks' notice. I sat at the desk, paranoid, every muscle tense. At 3:13 a.m., the lobby lights flickered. And then, the elevator dinged. A woman stepped out. Long red dress. Dripping hair. Lena. She walked up to the desk and whispered, "He didn't come back. So now I need someone else." My body froze. She handed me a rusted key. Room 313. And then, she smiled. "They say room 313 is still there. Locked. Abandoned. Sealed. But sometimes if you listen closely in the middle of the night, you'll hear water running. Or footsteps in an empty hallway. Or a knock from the other side of the door. So if you ever stay at a hotel that seems too quiet, and someone offers you room 313, don't take it, because Lena's still waiting. Let's move on to the next one. It all started when I accepted a job offer from a tech startup called Neural Nest. The company was developing AI-driven VR environments, hyper-realistic digital spaces that mimicked the real world down to dust particles and skin pores. The position? Night QA tester. The pay was incredible. But there was one catch. My shift would be inside their testing rig, a full immersion chair and visor that simulated the VR space completely. I'd be locked into a virtual hotel room every night, room 7C, and tasked with reporting visual bugs, object glitches, or anything unnatural that appeared. The onboarding guy smiled and said, "Whatever you do, don't open the closet." The first night, I slid into the immersion chair, placed the neural visor over my eyes, and let the simulation boot. Everything blurred, and then snapped into focus. I was standing in room 7C, a perfect hotel room. Lamps softly glowing, a humming fridge, clean white bed, a large mirror, a closet door to my right. It was uncanny, too real. Even the dust motes floated in the sunlight perfectly. My job was easy. I walked around the room, checking drawers, textures, reflections. The closet was locked. I didn't touch it. The only weird thing? Every mirror in the room reflected my body, but not my face. On my fourth night, things changed. The mirror flickered when I looked into it, just for a second. And then, something blinked back. A face. Not mine. Pale skin, sunken eyes, mouth open just slightly as if whispering something. Then it vanished. I filed it in my report as a mirror artifact. Later, while lying in bed in the simulation, I heard scratching. It was coming from the closet, but when I turned to look, it stopped. When I asked my supervisor about it the next day, he brushed it off. Yeah, that happens sometimes. The code leaks memory from older builds. He paused. Just don't open the closet. Seriously. Night 6, 2:31 a.m. Everything went black. No warning. Then red letters appeared inside the visor. Connection lost. Entering offline mode. The room rebooted, but something felt wrong. The lights were dimmer. The air felt heavier. And the door, usually locked, was wide open. Outside the room was a hallway I'd never seen before. Dim, endless, flickering. Like a dream someone tried to forget. Against my better judgment, I stepped out. The walls were covered in handprints, but they weren't painted. They were branded into the walls. And in the distance, I heard breathing. What? Close. I ran back into 7C and slammed the door. The closet rattled behind me. The next morning, I checked the simulation logs. They were corrupted. Lines of gibberish code and one clear phrase. He watches from the door. No one at Neural Nest responded to my emails. In fact, the office was closed when I stopped by. Entire floor empty. I searched online for anyone else who had worked there. I found a single archived forum post from 2019. If you get put in room 7C and you hear scratching, it means he knows your name now. That was all. I stared at my reflection in my laptop screen. My face looked normal. But then I blinked, and he didn't. Night 9. The simulation didn't wait for me. The moment I closed my eyes, I was already inside room 7C. I wasn't even in the chair anymore. And the closet door was wide open. Inside there was a staircase. Spiral. Endless. I heard whispering, low muttering, repeating my name over and over. I should have left. Pulled the visor off. Disconnected. But I couldn't move. I walked toward it. At the top of the closet stairs stood me, but not me. Something wearing my skin. Its jaw twisted too far. Its head turned slowly, unnaturally, and it whispered, "You left the door open." I tried to log out. The usual voice command didn't work. I screamed. I yanked at the visor. Nothing happened, because there was no visor. Room 7C was no longer a simulation. It was real, or it always had been. The mirror showed me my body, slumped, hollow. The reflection leaned forward and grinned. I ran to the hallway, down the stairs, through the dark, only to end up back in room 7C. And the closet slowly creaked open again. Some say Neural Nest never existed. The building is empty. No records. No website. But if you ever dream of a hotel room, a perfect one with white sheets, a humming fridge, and a mirror with no face, don't open the closet. Don't go offline. Because once you do, you're part of it now. Let's move on to the next one. It was supposed to be a quick weekend getaway. Just me, my girlfriend Rachel, and the open road. No plans, no hotels, just drive and stop where we liked. But somewhere along Highway 17 we got turned around. GPS stopped working. No signal, no data. That's when we saw a hand-painted wooden sign. Welcome to Harlow's Bend, population 173. A small, old-fashioned town. Perfect for a night's rest. It wasn't on the map. We figured it was one of those forgotten places. Quiet. We didn't realize we'd driven into something that didn't want us to leave. The streets were empty when we arrived. No cars. No kids. Just neat little houses, shutters closed, porches swept clean like something out of the 1950s. We found a diner with the lights on. Inside, 5 people sat silently, all facing the same direction. None of them spoke as we entered. The waitress smiled, but something was off about her. Her skin was pale, lips dry, eyes too wide. She handed us a menu and said, "Breathing is discouraged after sundown." We laughed nervously, thought it was some small-town joke. But she didn't laugh, just stared at us until we stopped breathing too. That night, we checked into the town's only motel. Dusty. The kind where the TV is bolted to the dresser and the air smells like forgotten years. There was a note under the pillow, scrawled in frantic handwriting. "Leave before dark. Don't ask questions. Don't breathe after midnight. They can smell it." Rachel thought it was a prank. I wasn't so sure. At 11:57 p.m., the power went out. And outside on the street we heard it. Deep, raspy breathing. Dozens of them. Maybe more. Slow, inhuman. And then footsteps. Coming closer. We didn't sleep. At dawn, the town looked normal again. Lights on. Birds chirping. No sign of anything unusual. We tried to leave. But every road out of Harlow's Bend twisted back into itself. North became south. Left became right. Even the compass on my phone spun uselessly. That afternoon we found the church. Inside was an altar. Not for God, not for anything holy. It was a circle of ash. Charred bones. Symbols etched into the stone. Plaque read, "The offering keeps them silent." And behind the pulpit, scratched into the wall, "Once you breathe the night air, you're one of us." That night, Rachel vanished. 1 minute she was brushing her hair in front of the mirror. The next, gone. No sound. No struggle. Just a cold draft in the room and her reflection still in the mirror, but smiling. I searched the streets. No one would help. Everyone just stood still, watching, expressionless, silent, not breathing. I screamed, begged. An old man whispered. She breathed at the wrong time. And then he walked away holding his breath. I broke into the town hall, hoping to find answers. Instead, I found records, thick ledgers dating back to 1831. All names, all victims, all offerings. One page listed Rachel's name, written in shaky ink. The last line simply read, "She smiled." That means they took her whole. Then the building shook. A deep moaning from below the floorboards. Something massive breathing in the dark beneath the town. I pried up the wooden planks. There was a tunnel, a staircase, endless and cold. I went down, and in the dark, I saw them. Dozens of townsfolk, eyes wide, mouths sewn shut, kneeling, worshipping a shape that didn't move, but breathed. Slow, loud, ancient. I never escaped. I tried. Every time I found the road, it brought me back to the diner. Every time I screamed, the people just blinked and looked away. Eventually, I stopped fighting. I learned to hold my breath. I learned not to speak. Now I work the motel desk. Tourists come, just like we did. I give them the key to room 4. I place the note under the pillow. Sometimes they listen. Most times they don't. And when midnight comes, I hear them breathe. And I know the town will grow by one more name. Some places exist between the cracks of the world. They feed. They wait. So if you ever see a road sign for Harlow's Bend, turn around. And if you don't, hold your breath. Because once you breathe their air, you're no longer your own. Let's move on to the next one. After my divorce, I needed space. Somewhere quiet to reset. I found a listing online for a cabin in the woods. Cheap rent. No neighbors. It almost felt too good to be true. The owner didn't meet me in person. Just left the keys in the mailbox with a note. Don't cover the mirrors. Don't move them. And don't let it out. That last part, I assume, was a joke. I was wrong. The cabin was cozy but strange. There were mirrors everywhere. One in every room. Some small, some full length. One even mounted to the ceiling above the bed. At first, I thought maybe the owner was vain or paranoid, or maybe just eccentric, but then I noticed something odd. The mirrors didn't reflect me correctly. When I lifted my hand, the reflection moved just a half-second late. When I turned my head, it watched me longer than it should have. And when I left the room, I swear I saw the reflection still standing there, smiling. 3 nights in, I woke up at 3:12 a.m. to a loud bang. The mirror in the hallway had cracked from the inside. There were no footprints, no signs of impact, just a long crack like something had tried to push through. The rest of the mirrors began to hum that night. Not loud, but a low, glassy vibration you could feel in your teeth. I covered one of them with a blanket. The next morning, the blanket was shredded. With no cell service, I used the landline to call the property manager. The phone rang twice, then stopped. A moment later, a voice spoke, my voice. But it wasn't me. It said, "Stop blocking the view. We're almost aligned now." I hung up. Then the line rang again. This time it whispered, "Don't you remember what you are?" The mirror in front of me fogged up, like something had breathed on it. But the room was ice cold. I set up my phone and recorded myself sleeping just to be safe. The next morning I played it back. From midnight to 3 a.m., everything was normal. But at 3:07 I saw something step out of the mirror. It looked like me, but its skin was paler, its eyes completely black. It stood over my body for 5 minutes, then it whispered something into my ear. I zoomed in. The words were, "Soon you'll sleep on this side, and I'll wake on yours." And then it walked back into the glass. That night I didn't sleep. At 3 a.m. sharp, every mirror in the cabin lit up with a faint glow. My reflection stepped out again, but this time it didn't look like me anymore. Its jaw was hanging loose. His fingers were too long. And it was smiling, a massive ear-to-ear grin that didn't belong to any human face. I tried to run. Every mirror showed me standing still. I smashed one. Glass flew, but no shards hit the floor. They floated, hovered in place, and began to reform. And my reflection whispered, "You broke the wrong side." I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up in the mirror. I could see my cabin, but I couldn't move, couldn't speak, just watch. And in my place, something else now wears my skin. It blinks a little too slow. It doesn't speak to people unless they're alone. And every night it stares into the glass and says, "Not yet, but soon." So if you ever rent a quiet cabin, and the mirrors seem off, don't break them. Because once the reflection smiles back on its own, it's already too late. It's been 13 days since I became trapped behind the mirror. Time doesn't pass the same way here. It stretches, melts, repeats, like a bad dream looping endlessly. But I see the cabin clearly. I see it, the thing that wears my body, living as me. It eats, breathes, laughs with people on the phone, even FaceTimes my sister. It's getting better at pretending. But last night, someone came to the door. A woman, maybe in her 60s, gray coat, gloves, eyes like she hadn't slept in years. She knocked twice, then looked directly into the mirror I was trapped behind. "You can hear me," she said. "Can't you?" The thing wearing my face didn't react. She leaned closer. "You're not the first." I pressed my palms against the glass from the other side, screaming without sound. She continued, "There's one way back, but you won't like it." Then she slid something under the door, a black cloth and a small chisel. "It's not the glass that holds you here," she whispered. "It's the eye contact." And just before she turned to leave, she said, "Don't let it see you watching it sleep. Tonight I'll try. When the thing wearing my body sleeps, I'll break the rule. I'll stare. And maybe, just maybe, I'll come back. But if it sees me first, then you'll be the one hearing this story next. Because once you look into the wrong reflection, it never stops watching." Let's move on to the next one. I was sent to the town of Dry Creek to cover a piece for a regional magazine, one of those sleepy middle-of-nowhere towns that most maps forget. Population 812. I was assigned to document local folklore, ghost stories, superstitions, something light-hearted for the October issue. When I asked what the town's biggest legend was, everyone gave the same answer: the bell. It rings at 3:33. And if you hear it, you don't talk about it. At first, I thought it was just small-town creepiness for fun. But they weren't smiling. Not one of them. I began to dig. No churches had bells. No schools either. There was no physical bell tower anywhere in the entire town. But still, I kept hearing the stories. A farmer who went missing in the 90s after claiming to hear it. A teenager who wandered into the woods after 3:33 a.m. and was never seen again. And everyone I asked said the same thing. If you hear it, stay in bed. Don't open your eyes. Don't answer the door. Don't speak. That night I set my alarm. 3:30 a.m. Just in case. The alarm went off. I sat up in the motel room, heart pounding, recorder ready. Nothing happened. Then, right as the clock turned to 3:33, dong. A single low echoing bell. It didn't sound like it came from outside. It sounded like it came from inside my own chest. Then silence. But outside the window I saw someone walking down the street. Barefoot. Head tilted. Eyes open, but empty. They were walking toward the woods at the edge of town. I called out, but they didn't react. I recorded everything. The next day I checked my audio recorder. Nothing. No bell. No footsteps. Not even my own voice. It was like the last 10 minutes never existed. I showed the footage of the person walking to a local shopkeeper. She went pale. "That's Mrs. Hanley," she whispered. "She's been dead for 6 years. When I asked how that was possible, she just shook her head and muttered, "You heard it, didn't you?" I nodded. Her hands trembled. "You need to leave, before it rings again." In the library, I found a locked drawer in the archives desk. The librarian, a quiet man with sunken eyes, slid me the key without a word. Inside was a leather diary, dated 1872. It belonged to a preacher named Elijah Boone. He wrote about the town's curse. He claimed a bell once hung in the center of Dry Creek, a gift from travelers, but it didn't ring for time. It rang for claiming. When it rang at 3:33, someone, alive or dead, had to follow it into the woods. And if no one went willingly, something came instead. I planned to leave that night, packed my bags, started the car, but it wouldn't start. Battery completely drained, and my phone 100% at 9 p.m., dead by 9:01. At 3:33 a.m. the bell rang again. Dong. I squeezed my eyes shut. I didn't look, but then, knock, knock, knock. Someone was at the motel room door. A voice whispered, "We never got your name. You heard the bell. Now we have to know who you are." I held my breath, but the door handle began to turn. I opened my eyes. Standing in the doorway was me, but wrong. Hollow, face slightly off, eyes completely black. It smiled, reached out a hand, and whispered, "I can take your place. You just have to ring the bell for the next one, and you'll be free." Behind him, the woods pulsed like they were breathing. I slammed the door shut. The bell stopped, and everything went quiet. I didn't sleep the night after I heard the bell at home. I sat in the living room, every light on, phone in hand, but it stayed at 0% battery the entire time, like the town had followed me somehow. At 3:33 a.m. the bell rang again. Not outside, not distant. This time, it came from inside my house. And then I saw it, sitting in the corner of my living room, next to the grandfather clock I didn't own. A small black bell. Rusted, still vibrating. Attached to it was a note tied in twine. "You were marked when you heard it. You've been chosen now. You must ring it for the next one." Below that was a name. Not mine. A stranger's. A 17-year-old girl from Michigan. I don't know her. She's never heard the bell. Not yet. But if I ring it, it passes on to her. I stared at the note for hours. The bell whispered, "Just one ring, and you're free." I haven't made a decision, but every night the bell gets louder. And every time I hesitate, my name fades just a little more. If I wait too long, I'll be the next one walking barefoot into the woods. So now I ask you, if this bell showed up at your door, and you had the power to pass it on, would you ring it? Or would you follow the sound into the woods, where no one ever comes back? Because the bell must ring at 3:33, whether it's for you, or because of you. Let's move on to the next one. I took a job as a late-night subway attendant in a city that never sleeps. The shifts were quiet, mostly just maintenance checks and occasional security alerts. One night, just past midnight, a strange announcement came over the PA system. "Attention passengers, the last train will stop at Station 13. Please prepare to disembark." I thought nothing of it. Station 13 was long closed due to structural damage. But then I heard footsteps on the platform. Slowly, people started to appear. No one I recognized. They all looked tired, pale, and distant. The train pulled into the station exactly on time. Doors opened. The passengers boarded without a sound. But the train didn't leave. It just sat there. Minutes passed. No driver came out. No announcements. The lights flickered, then went out. When they came back on, the passengers were gone. The doors stayed open, but no one stepped out. Over the next few nights, more passengers appeared. Each time the train arrived at Station 13, new faces appeared on the platform. people who never existed in any records. I started noticing patterns. All missing persons vanished years ago. They all looked toward me, eyes hollow. And then one night I heard whispering on the intercom. Don't let them leave. They don't belong. A veteran subway worker pulled me aside. He told me the legend. Station 13 was a trap. Once you step on that platform, you don't leave. Those who enter become part of the ghost train, cursed to endlessly travel the tracks, trapped between stations. If the train stops for you, you're never coming back. One night, a young woman appeared. She looked terrified but hopeful. She whispered, "Help me get off. I don't want to ride forever." I wanted to believe I could save her. But the station grew colder. The walls seemed to breathe, and the train whistle sounded again. The doors closed. The train started moving backward. I ran after it, but the platform stretched forever. No matter how fast I ran, I couldn't catch the train or the woman inside. She turned, smiled sadly, and vanished into the darkened car. The last thing I heard was a voice behind me. The last stop is home. Days later, I woke up on the platform, alone, except for a small badge on my jacket that read, Station 13 Attendant. I'm trapped now, waiting for the next train, for the next passenger, for someone to join me in this endless ride. Weeks have passed since I became the new Station 13 attendant. I wander the empty platform waiting for the train. It arrives every night at 3:13 a.m., exactly on time. Tonight I noticed something new. A small, worn-out notebook lying on the bench. I opened it. Inside were entries, names, dates, messages from others trapped before me. One entry caught my eye. To whoever finds this, the train isn't just a prison. It's a gateway. If you can find the last car, you might find a way out. But beware, some doors shouldn't be opened. I waited, heart pounding, as the train screeched into the station. This time the doors opened just for me. I stepped aboard. Inside it was dark but silent. The cars stretched on forever. I walked through them, each car more decayed than the last. At the very end, a heavy metal door. I hesitated, then pushed it open. Beyond the door was the city, but not mine. Buildings twisted in impossible angles. Streets stretched into black voids. And in the distance, another station. One with a flickering neon sign. Station 13. The train was moving again, waiting for its next passenger. So if you ever find yourself at a deserted station late at night and hear a train whistle that doesn't belong, remember, some doors lead not to freedom, but to the beginning of a nightmare. Let's move on to the next one. I received an anonymous letter with no return address. Inside, a single line. Come to Hollow Creek. Find the truth. But beware the whispers. Curiosity, and something darker, pulled me to this forgotten town nestled in the woods. Hollow Creek looked abandoned. Shuttered windows. Overgrown streets. Yet as I walked, I heard faint whispers on the wind. No one answered when I knocked on doors. But every window had curtains twitching as if unseen eyes watched. At the local diner, I met the only person willing to speak. An old woman named May. Her eyes were sharp, her voice trembling. Stay away after dark. The hollow listens. The hollow never forgets. She handed me a carved wooden charm and vanished into the shadows. That night, alone in the motel, the whispers returned. Soft voices calling my name. I tried to ignore them, but they grew louder, then clearer. We see you. We know you. I searched the town archives. Hollow Creek was founded by settlers who vanished mysteriously. Legend spoke of a dark pact with the forest spirit known as the Hollow. In exchange for prosperity, the townsfolk promised eternal silence. The next day I found strange marks etched into trees, symbols I'd seen carved into May's charm. Suddenly my skin itched. Looking down, I saw a fresh mark forming on my arm, a symbol of the Hollow. That night, the whispers became screams. Shadows darted just beyond my vision. I ran through the woods, branches clawing at me. The forest seemed alive, breathing, watching. I stumbled into an ancient clearing. A stone altar stood at its center. Carved into it were the faces of the missing settlers. The Hollow's voice echoed, "You came seeking truth. Now you belong to the Hollow." I awoke in the motel. The mark on my arm burned. May's charm lay shattered beside me. Outside, the forest was silent. But inside, a new whisper began. My voice, calling someone else. After that night, the whispers didn't stop. They followed me everywhere. In the motel walls, the rustling trees, even my dreams. My voice calling out to strangers no one else could hear. And then the phone rang. A raspy voice whispered through the receiver, "You're part of the Hollow now. You carry its song. Find the others before it finds you." I returned to the town, driven by the message. At the diner, I met a group, all marked like me, all haunted by the same voice. They called themselves the Listeners. They told me the Hollow collects souls in cycles. Each chosen one must seek the others to form a circle of voices, a ritual to keep the Hollow at bay. Without the circle, the Hollow's hunger grows. That night, we gathered in the clearing around the stone altar. Each of us spoke our names into the dark. The forest pulsed with power. The whispers grew louder, pleading, desperate. As our voices intertwined, the marks burned brighter. A single question echoed in my mind. Will the ritual save us or bind us forever? The ritual seemed to work. At first, the whispers faded to a distant murmur, but the marks burned hotter. One by one, members of the Listeners started disappearing. No trace, only faint echoes of their voices lingering in the wind. I realized the Hollow was not satisfied with just our voices, wanted more. I found an old journal in the library, hidden beneath floorboards. It told of an ancient pact. Every century, the Hollow claims a sacrifice to reset the balance. The circle of voices is both protection and prison. If the ritual fails, the Hollow devours its chosen. If it succeeds, the cycle begins anew, with new voices joining the chorus. I was alone now. The forest closed in tighter. The mark on my arm pulsed with unbearable heat. The whispers grew frantic. Then one night a voice whispered clearly, "Sing with us or be silent forever." The altar called me back. I knew my choice. I stepped into the clearing once more, raised my voice in a trembling chant. The forest answered. The Hollow accepted. My voice joined the eternal whisper. I was no longer alone. Now I am part of the Hollow's song, and it sings through me. Long after I became part of the Hollow's chorus, a stranger arrived in town. She carried the same carved charm May had once given me. Her eyes held both fear and determination. She said she was a messenger, someone who traveled between the Hollow and the outside world, tasked with warning the next chosen souls. Her mission was to break the cycle. But to do that, she needed my voice. The messenger offered me a chance to escape. She said breaking free meant severing my voice from the Hollow's song, but at a cost. I could lose myself completely or condemn another to take my place. As the whispers swelled around us, I faced a terrible choice. Stay bound to the hollow's eternal song, or risk everything for a fleeting chance at freedom. I took the charm and felt the burning mark fade. The whispers stopped. For now. The messenger vanished, leaving only her warning. The hollow waits. The silence won't last forever. I was free, but only until the next whisper calls. Let's move on to the next one. I arrived in Brackenwood just as the sun slipped beneath the hills, painting the sky in bruised purples and fiery oranges. The road was narrow, winding through thick, tangled woods that seemed to swallow the last of the daylight. A creeping fog rolled in low, curling around my ankles as I stepped off the bus. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of moss and forgotten things. As I walked through the village streets, I noticed something strange. Every house had a clock tower. Tall, proud clocks perched on roofs and nestled in garden walls, all ticking relentlessly. But none of the clocks showed the right time. Some were frozen at midnight, others spun wildly out of control, hands spinning backwards or forward like time itself was broken. The villagers moved slowly, faces pale and eyes empty, as if carrying a burden too heavy to bear. They barely glanced my way, their lips sealed tight. I could feel their silence pressing in on me like a thick fog. I found the heart of the town, a small dusty shop with a faded sign that read, Elias Watchmaker. Inside, an old man sat hunched over a cluttered workbench, his gnarled fingers delicately adjusting the gears of a tiny pocket watch. He looked up, eyes sharp and weary. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly. "Brackenwood isn't a place for strangers. Time here, it's different. It doesn't flow the way you think." I pressed him for answers, but he only gave me a cryptic warning. "The clocks don't measure hours or minutes. They measure lives. Every tick takes us closer to the end." That night I barely slept. At midnight sharp, the giant town clock halted with a bone-chilling clang. A scream shattered the silence. I rushed outside just in time to see a house door slam shut. By morning, one of the villagers was gone. No trace, no farewell, just vanished. Desperation took hold. I returned to the watchmaker, pleading for the truth. He revealed the terrible secret. Generations ago, the villagers had made a pact with an ancient being, the timekeeper, an entity that existed beyond mortal hours. In exchange for prosperity and peace, the timekeeper demanded a life whenever the clocks stopped. One soul for each frozen second. My heart pounded. Before I could respond, a stranger appeared. A gaunt man with haunted eyes who claimed he had once escaped Brackenwood. "Don't trust the watchmaker," he warned. "He's no friend. The clocks? They're chains. He's the timekeeper's servant." Time began to twist wildly. Clocks stopped and raced at impossible speeds. I could feel reality fraying around me, each moment stretching and snapping. Determined to end the nightmare, I searched the watchmaker's basement. It was a tomb of broken clocks, each one a prisoner of time, souls trapped inside forever. Among the wreckage I found my own watch. Stopped. Silenced. Dead. Confronting the watchmaker, I found the truth laid bare. He was the warden of the timekeeper's prison, bound to collect souls for eternity. "You can join us," he said, voice cold as ice, "or be forgotten by time." In a desperate act, I smashed the master clock that controlled the town's cursed time. Time shattered. The village froze, its people trapped in still frames like cracked portraits. I escaped, but the curse followed me. Now, every tick of my watch counts down to my own frozen fate. And sometimes when the night is still, I hear it, the faint ticking of the broken village, waiting for time to begin again. Even after I fled Brackenwood, the village's curse clung to me like a shadow. The watchmaker's warning echoed in my mind. Every tick takes us closer to the end. Days later, I noticed something disturbing. My own watch, an old, battered piece I'd carried since childhood, had started ticking erratically. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow, like it was out of sync with the world around me. At first, I thought it was a mechanical fault. But then I realized the ticking wasn't just sound, it was a heartbeat, a countdown. Everywhere I went, the air seemed heavier, like invisible chains tightening around my chest. The shadows lengthened unnaturally. People's faces blurred when I looked at them. One evening, I woke to the sound of relentless ticking in my bedroom. It wasn't coming from the watch. It was coming from the walls, from inside my own mind. I began to see glimpses of Brackenwood in my dreams, frozen villagers trapped behind invisible glass, their eyes pleading for release. The stranger's warning rang true. The watchmaker was the timekeeper's servant, and now I was marked. I wasn't just a victim, I was a prisoner in a larger game. Determined to break the curse, I started researching legends of time in cursed villages. I found references to other places like Brackenwood, forgotten towns swallowed by time, bound by ancient pacts and unbreakable oaths. One story stood out. A ritual long lost, rumored to free those trapped by the timekeeper's curse. It required a key, a clock that could reverse time itself. But no one knew if it existed anymore. Haunted and desperate, I found myself standing once more at the edge of Brackenwood's forest. Fog curled thick and suffocating. The village appeared frozen in time, like a faded photograph. The master clock tower loomed above, silent and cracked. I stepped inside the watchmaker's abandoned shop. Dust covered every surface, but in the corner was a small, intricate clock unlike any I'd seen. Its hands spun backward. Could this be the key? I gripped the clock tight and whispered, "Break the cycle, or be broken by time."